Good. I just started the
There you are.
recording, so you're ready to rip.
All right.
All right. Afternoon, everybody. This is Mike Sayre, Matt Lehman for M&M Exhibition Poultry. We're talking chickens today. We have a special guest today. Again, sorry we hadn't been here in a while, but things just didn't work out. We have Jeff Duguay. Am I saying that right, Jeff?
It's Duguay.
Okay, Duguay.
Yes.
Uh, and most of you know him, or a lot of you might know him, not only as a show, but of his books, Clucker books. And Jeff, Jeff, what are you a PhD of?
Of life. Just
Okay.
kidding. No, my PhD is in ornithology and wildlife management from West
Ah,
Virginia University.
oh,
Yeah, I've
you're
been
a
in.
doctor.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just
wow.
not a
Look at
medical
that.
doctor.
That's all right. We don't care. As long as it's got a doctor's signature, they'll go with it.
That's right.
So, Jeff, tell us about yourself. Matt and I have known you for a while, and I'm sure a lot of people know the books, but maybe if they haven't been to a show where you're at, haven't been down south, they might not know you. So give us a little background on you, what got you started, how long you've been in it, just the usual, hi,
Sure.
I'm Jeff thing.
Okay. Well, I live in Louisiana, but I grew up in Maine. So a little different climate wise.
A little
But
bit.
yeah, so I've actually been interested, I guess, in birds since I can remember. As a little kid, we always had chickens. And I remember my mother telling me our first birds we had was her brother showed up at Easter time with a bunch of chicks. I don't remember. That's probably like 3 or 4 or something at the time. Maybe that's what got me interested. I don't know. But really, my whole life I've been interested in birds. When I was a kid, I used to show, but I did, I think, the typical thing that a lot of youth do. I got them from a hatchery, and I didn't know anything about what I was doing. I'd still go to shows and show them. I never did much at them, but I still had fun. I still went all the time.
Right.
Um, and then, I showed, all through high school. Then after high school, actually, I worked in a warehouse for 5 years. Because I didn't like school when I was in school. I was a BC student, didn't try. My philosophy was if I can't learn it just sitting there in class, no point in trying. so, so
Yeah.
warehouse was a good choice for me after high school. But after 5 years of doing that, I decided, I don't want to do this the rest of my life. So then I went to college for 9 straight years. I got a bachelor's in Maine at Unity College in wildlife biology. Then I went to Kentucky, did my master's in avian ecology with Eastern Kentucky University. Then my PhD in wildlife management. I specialized in neotropical migrants. So I did that at West Virginia University. And then from there, I worked as a wildlife manager in Maryland for a year. Then I went professor route, did that for about 12 years. And I'm currently in Louisiana. I work for Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. I'm the director over game species management. So pretty much anything you can hunt sort of falls, into my lap, if you will.
Nice.
So that's sort of, just a brief background. I've been raising modern game for quite a while. All told, I don't know, 20 plus years with moderns. That's the main thing I show. Um, I recently got a few naked neck bantams just for something different. So I've been
I've,
raising a few of
I've,
them.
I've seen them. They're different. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, they sure
They're
are,
all right.
especially compared to the moderns. Yeah.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
No,
So
no
that's right
judgment.
now. What's
No
that?
judgment on my end. I used to travel with the president of the Naked Neck Club, so I
Yeah.
know all Todd Cosart. I know way more about naked necks than I ever wanted to.
Well, my wife really likes them because they're weird looking. So that was a good reason to, get them.
I will say one thing about them. I judged them at the Congress this year, and they had every color in the rainbow, and I had to go get my standard out and look them up,
Oh,
make
yeah.
sure they were recognized because I didn't realize there was that many colors of them recognized, and every color that's recognized was at the Congress.
Wow. Impressive.
Yeah, they were nice. They were
And there
nice.
were
They
some
had the
nice
right
ones in
type
there.
too.
Yeah. Yeah. They're neat birds. Something different for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So a kind of brief background on me, I guess.
Well, good deal. I
Right.
know that
What do you
I'll jump right over Mike here because I always do. Um,
basic?
the first book come out and it was the modern book, and I was kind of interested because I've had moderns off and on for a long time myself. So what I liked about it and what I told everybody was, and I've been with the ABA's books since for 25 years now, I think. And what I've done with their library is there's nothing new being written. And
Right.
with the advent of the internet, we had a lot of this information that was out there, but there was no place that was all combined. We had old books and we had these articles on the internet and a few newer written articles. So with all the ABA books, we took to combine all that and update them a little bit so that we had something more current. And I was love to see this come about because there's nothing new being written about exhibition poultry pretty much.
Right.
There just isn't a big enough market for anybody to feasibly do it. And the ones that were doing it were all overseas. And that's a whole different game over there. So I don't know that it
Yes.
was it was adding any value to us over here. So it was great to see that come out. And I think I bought the modern book when you first got it. And one of the things I like about it, whether you're an old timer or a new person or whatever stage you're in this hobby, they're a great reference book. And it's
Right.
got things in there that's not anywhere else. So that's my take.
Yeah, that sort of came out as actually it started out as just notes to myself on my breeding program. It's when I some of my first moderns, they were pretty sad looking. When I first started showing, my goal was don't get disqualified, and I met that goal, so I didn't get birds disqualified. But of course, I wouldn't win or do anything, not even best of variety. But over the years, they had improved a lot. Um, so I basically started it out as notes so that I would remember how I got to where I got to. I banned every bird, keep good breeding records, and so I sort of wanted to figure out, or not figure out, but keep a good record of what I did. So I was writing that, and then I was talking to my wife. I said, this would make a good book. So then I just sort of added on to it, modified it some, and sort of made it into the book. So that's how that really came about.
Yep.
Good deal. One thing I liked about our little experience with it, so Mike and I and Tom Roebuck actually helped you with the coaching book, but kind
Right.
of tell everybody I liked about that instance was you had three different opinions, three different judges, three different
Yes.
breeders telling you three different things. So you got to take all that information, and combine it. But when all three of them agree on one thing, that may be what you want to pay attention to. So I think
Exactly.
we found that out as we was doing that because there's a lot of good stuff in that book, and I always tell everybody that's new to coachings, and it's a popular breed, just like moderns is
Right.
the second most popular breed, but coachings are probably in the top 10, or top five. They kind of go up and down every year with Wyandottes, but there's enough people getting into it, and they get so discouraged quickly about some of the
Right.
intricacies of the breed itself. Coaching Bantams, and we added large fowl in there even more. We see a resurgence of the big coachings these days. They're coming back. They were down to almost nothing, and now they're coming back. So I think that was a good thing for that book that we had a little variety. And some of your other ones, I'm looking at them here, but some of the other ones are breeds I'm not that interested in, but I did buy them just to read them. God
Hmm.
knows I've judged more silky nationals than anybody alive, and that's a whole different ball of wax. And I like to see something that instead of all this craziness that's in the silky business, I like to see something with Tony and you guys did that kind
Right.
of puts it out there that hey, you need to do this, this, and this, and kind of not get off on the foo-foo end of the silky business. So I thought that was a great addition too.
Yeah. What I started doing after the modern book was, incorporating, other experts. Like with the modern book, if I was to do it over again, I think I'd have asked other, judges like I do with these books, to partner with me on it. In it, I had asked them questions, got feedback and stuff. But then with the second book, The Old English, I wrote that with Peyton Igo. He's
Right.
shown them for a long time. He's a judge. Um, what happened with that is I was telling him after I wrote the modern book, I said, kind of sad. I wrote this modern book. I like writing books, but I don't know enough about any other breed of chicken to write a book on them. And he said, well, I really know a lot about Old English, but I don't write. I said, well, let's join forces. So that's sort of how we get started, collaborating with other people on these. Yeah.
That's great, and you've got some great ones along there. I know Josh Trujillo, I think,
Yeah.
did help with the Crested book, along with Keith Wagner, and I don't think
Right.
he could have picked two better people. Josh is like we're going to have him on eventually here too. Is he's like the poultry historian for a young guy, so he
Yes.
researches all this old stuff, and I've got poultry presses back to the 40s, so I've. The problem is when I sit down into it, then I'm all day long looking at old crap and taking pictures and sending him these articles. So a lot of
Right.
the stuff that he has gotten, I've been able to supply him. I have a lot of the old crusted foul books, and Mike and I are lucky enough that we knew all those old timer that people that were in the 70s and 80s that were still in the crested breeds, and they were really hot back then. So we kind of helped him along, and I was glad to see that one come about. Anything new in the works? I know you're working on a couple others.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm working on the Italian breeds right now with Steve Beatty and Brian Carricker. That's the Ancona, Buttercup, and Leghorn.
Mm-hmm.
And I've also started another book with Bill Patterson and also Kristen Garrison that helped with the
Oh,
D'Anvers part of
great.
the Steve Drake D'Anvers book. And that one's going to be Hamburg, Rosecomb, and Watermall. And Kristen,
Good, good.
she really
Kristen's
knows
great.
the yeah.
So she just joined the apprentice program, and up until the first of the month,
Oh, good.
I was ahead of that. And it's kind of a short story. I'll tell it about the water mall though. But I have judged her birds before out in California. I was out
Mm-hmm.
there several years ago, and that was the first time I ever seen them. And the tremendous class we had I think it was a pair or trio of black water malls in the ABA auction that brought this outrageous amount of money. And I
Good.
was kind of interested into them then because I'd never seen them before, other than in the old standards when we first put them in. So I've talked to her quite a bit. She's in the apprenticeship program. She's actually working with us and now on the standard committee with the
Oh,
blue
great.
quail water mall to get them admitted, but not a better person for correct. She just redid the standard because it had some mistakes. I mean, she gets the stuff right, and
Oh,
I think
yeah.
she's going to be a great judge. She's a great breeder. I judged the Watermall National at the Congress this year,
Mm-hmm.
and she won reserve rosecomb clean leg with the Watermall. She's
Wow.
done that several times, and that's saying something because you're talking
Absolutely.
about a breed that was completely inactive, 10, 15 years ago, and
Right.
has made these strides. And actually, I have a few. So, kind of a neat little bird, very, very D'Anver like, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe not quite as aggressive. And
Mm-hmm.
they kind of have their intricacies, but kind of a neat little bird. So,
Yeah.
we're
That little
playing with them a little
tassel.
bit, but I'm glad
Yeah.
that's going to be coming. And you got two good ones there. God knows we know Bill since we were kids, and nobody knows him and Rick Hare. Probably nobody know more about black rosecombs and rosecomb bantams than they do. So,
Right. Yeah. What's good about Kristen too with this book, she's a really good writer. She knows her stuff,
yep.
but she's a good photographer. A lot of people aren't, and that makes a big difference for these
Me,
books.
I'm the
You
worst.
know, so a lot of times I'll get pictures from people for the book, and they're really grainy, so I just can't use them. But she's got
Ask
great
Mike about that.
pictures.
Mike just looked at about 1,000 pictures for the standard, and they
Yeah.
had to glean a few new ones out, and they found out. And I know because I traveled with Neil Grassball for 25 years, and he would spend hours getting that one picture. It
Yeah.
may take of 1,000 pictures to get that one picture, and I
Yeah.
thought, nope. I throw them in the box. They either pose, and then I'm done. So that's why you very rarely see a Chanticleer picture because I tell you, I ain't taking one. They never will stand. They look like shit when they're done, and
Yeah.
then I have all the internet critics telling me how bad they are. So it's just better not to even put one out there. So I
Oh
do think
yeah.
she does a good job with the pictures and everything that she sent me some articles and some things that's very thorough. She's very thorough,
Oh yeah.
and that's what you need, I think,
Yes.
with this. So you can take some of us dummies that just throw a bunch of crap together and organize it, and she'll be a good one for that book. I look forward to that one coming out. So
Absolutely. Yeah. She's writing an article for the APA yearbooks. I'm the chairman for that committee. So I asked her to write an article on the water mall, so that'll be in there as well.
that'd be good. And I hopefully, so what we have done with them over the years. So years ago, the Co-Shamos qualified for the APA first, and I
Mm-hmm.
was president back then. And I thought, there's no way we're going to have a breed of bantams that is APA recognized and not ABA recognized. So what we done was we took their qualifying meet was actually done by the ABA vice president and Heather Hayes. I said,
Yeah.
let's just take their qualifying meet, and if they want them accepted in the ABA, fill out the paperwork and just use that qualifying meet as ours. And not with much fight, believe me,
Good.
but I actually got that
Well,
through, and
that's
that was
good.
the first breed that ever was put in the ABA standard that didn't actually have a qualifying meet. We used theirs. I would hope that they would just add the water mall to the
I
APA.
hope
If
so.
they're smart, they will, because we're
Right.
seeing that where we have to pick a double rose comb clean leg now because they're so good that they're winning the top
Hmm.
prize, and we're going to see someday maybe that a water mall is champion Bantam, and then it's going to have to the APA is not going to be on board with that. We're going to have to pick something else. So
Right.
in the hopes of standard unification, and when breeds do get popular, I like to see new breeds get put in, and so I hope they do that. I'm not sure how they're. I know Phil Bartz is the head of their standard committee right now, and I think Phil will be a good one to work with for her to get that done.
Good.
What other Jeff? What other books do you have? And what's your best-selling book?
All right. Well, I've got the modern. I got the old English, and I actually had the old English translated into Spanish.
Yep.
My daughter-in-law did that for me. She's bilingual. Then the Silky. I have one called Decade of Winners, or Bantam's A Decade of Winners, where I basically just went through over a 10-year period and looked to see within each class, who's winning and stuff. That was kind of a neat one. That was more
Yeah, I got that one.
stats
Yeah,
related.
I got that.
Yeah.
They got that.
Let's see. I also have the Duguay book, or Duckle, or Duckle, depending on how you pronounce it. And then, of course, the coaching that I wrote with you guys and Tom. Then Seabright D'Anvers, Crested Breed, which is Krevkor, Houdan, Polish, and Sultan. And then I just recently published one on parasites, diseases, and disorders of poultry. But of all the books I've published, the Silky has been the most popular. But since that disease book has come out, for this year, that's been the most popular one. But usually when they first come out, of course, they sell a bunch of those. So it's been Silky and then the disease book. And what's interesting, though, with the modern book, I've sold that to people in 19 countries. And other than the United States, that book is most popular in Australia. They're really into moderns there.
Yep.
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 Yeah.
We have one that we redid through Walt Leonard a few years ago called. It was by a friend of ours, Ralph Sturgeon. Mike and I
Mhm.
knew him when we were kids, but it's Start Where You Are with What You Have. And I love that book because
Yes.
it was very simplistic, but very good information. And Ralph was that way. He didn't talk a whole lot, but what he said, you better listen to. So Walt Leonard, God rest his soul, was the publisher of that book originally. And I talked him into letting the ABA republish it. And it is crazy when we get online and talk about that book, or it's on Facebook or something.
Oh,
Kevin
yeah.
Unrath will email me, go, are you online again? Because he's getting all these orders. And I think the last batch we had, they went to Serbia, Bulgaria,
Wow.
Romania. So a lot of European countries that's the book they want in English, just because I think it's just a fairly simple, straightforward
It
way
is.
to get started without all the craziness. So,
Right.
and Ralph was that way. He actually lived everything that he preached in that book. So,
The neat thing about Ralph, a little side story. So we were in our teens, probably 13, 14, and went to Bellevue, Ohio, which is a blip in the road. I mean, really,
yep,
it's just
middle of nowhere.
very middle of nowhere. And so I go in, and I don't know. Ralph had to be. He was close to 90 then, wasn't he, Matt?
Yeah,
He
he
was in his high 80s or 90s,
he lived to be over
and
100. I know that.
Wow.
hell, he was in the senior Olympics and won the 100-yard dash at like 98 or some shit. Anyway, but I mean, he was
He was a high
tall.
state basketball player.
Oh yeah, and a good one. And he was thin, tall, and so we were talking, and he said, and I'm looking, and like I don't see any chicks, and he said, "What do you want?" And I said, "Well, I'd like some White Rock Bantams and Barred Rock Bantams." Okay, let's go. He grabs a bucket of wheat, and we walk into a cornfield,
Uh
and he starts throwing wheat, and it looked like the swarm.
huh.
I have never seen reds and rocks
Come out
come
of the
up
corn.
there, and he would say, "Okay, catch what you want." It was like, oh my! But it was neat. And back then, I mean, like I said, he was in his 90s. We walked into one of his hatchery. He used to run a hatchery, but one of the rooms, and there was this uh, silver Polish cockerel, big,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful bird, and he had two silver sea bright females. I said, "What are we doing?" He said, "Well, now granted, remember he's in his 90s. He said, I'm gonna. The sea brights came from Polish, and they have similar trouble with range paralysis, which is Merrick's, but back then it was range paralysis. He
Okay.
said, I'm going to make them. I'm going to get them over that and breed them back down to where they're supposed to be." He was 90 some years old, but that was a goal. And that has stuck with me. That and
Mm-hmm.
part of the reason I mean, he was a very hard worker. He was a gentleman, uh, but he had something to look forward to.
Right.
He had something he wanted to do, and as long as he had that, he just kept going. Then, of course, he gets in the Olympics at 100 years old. I mean, it was an amazing story and
Mm-hmm.
a very nice gentleman. And he talked the way he wrote, very simple. You don't need to do all this. You don't need to do all that. Here's what works. Go work it until it works. And I think that's what drew me to that book, because I think when that book first came out, we both got it. I probably had a half a dozen of them over the years and give them away to people. But it's that same thing, and I think the point I'm getting at is on books is, even if you know, or if you think you know, there's something good about sitting down with a book that you've went through and
Right.
be able to, because you forget those little things or something clicks in your head and you go, oh, that's where I went wrong. I mean, you were right and you made a wrong turn. You don't even know you made the wrong turn till you end up somewhere you don't expect to be. So it's
Uh-huh.
nice to have, instead of the internet, which I love the internet, and we're on it, but I mean, it's nice to have that imprint where you could go back through and look. And that's why I like your books. And I'm like, Matt, there are some things that I'm really not interested in as far as for me, but it's amazing what you can learn from other breeds to apply to your breed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't think you can have I don't think you can have too many books, and it shows if you saw my storage locker that I've been paying for. It's full of books and poultry presses, and I give a bunch of stuff away, but I still have a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's, to me, that brings you back to your roots. So I
Right.
thank you for doing the books. I think they're a great thing to have. Have you wrote any other kind of books, or just the chicken books?
Yeah, just the poultry books. For work, I publish a lot of scientific papers, but
You're right.
yeah, just the poultry. I just really enjoy writing those books. I learn a ton writing them.
Right.
It's just
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Things you can apply. So where I assume they're available about everywhere. I know the ABA. We have them.
Right.
Uh, the ABA store, but they can go to www.cluckerbooks.com. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's my website. Yeah, so they can go there, get them directly from me or from the ABA store and even APA store. Right.
That's great.
We will add that link when we publish up the
Excellent.
podcast too, so that they can below the where we
Yeah.
publish it. I'll add that in so they know that they can get it there.
Yeah, and they can see sample pages and stuff, get an idea of what the books are like. It's
And
just
it's very
I'm a visual learner.
very fast ship. I will say that he's very good at getting them
Yeah,
out.
I try to ship them
Yeah.
within a day.
Yeah. That's the
But,
fastest I've ever seen. I forget to even go. I look at the back of my car and go, "Oh crap! I'm supposed to mail
I
that."
tell you what, I'll give you some feedback, Jeff. My wife loves your calendar because
oh,
I can tell her when I got a chicken show and she never
yeah,
remembers. But that calendar hangs in our laundry room and she can look on there and say, "Oh, you going this one, this one, this one, this month." So I don't know if you're going to continue it, but I'm going to be the one that misses that because I don't have to repeat myself 5,000 times. I just go look at the
right,
calendar. If it's within 500 miles, I'm usually going. So
yeah. Yeah. I'm not going to do those because they don't sell very well.
I was shocked.
You know,
I think if anybody got them, they would buy them again. I think that's the big push is you got to
Yeah.
get it because all the shows are on there,
Oh, I
and
know.
it just makes it nice and it's good
Yeah.
to look at too. Actually, there's a water mall this month on the. I noticed when I was
I know.
in the laundry room the other day. I said, "Oh, there's a water mall." She goes, "You got
Yeah.
those?" I said, "Yes."
Yeah. I do a different breed, every month, of course.
What do you have? So what's next? I know you're working on these other books, but you have anything down the line you're thinking of? How you're going to expand on what's the next breed of bantam or large fowl or whatever you're doing? Or
Um, well, I'd like to write a book on every breed. There probably won't be enough time. Um, I've been publishing 2 a year, which is pretty good, I think.
pretty
Um,
aggressive.
yeah. So I got these 2 books I'm doing now. Kind of the slow up with them right now is I need more pictures. So I'm probably gonna have to wait till fall to be able to get more of the pictures I want. Like the Duguay book, that one came about because Susan Buchanan kept asking me to write one on it. So I guess I got tired of her asking me. So I said, okay, well, I need a judge that knows a lot about them. So she recommended Aaron Hamilton, who was great to work with. Um,
Yep.
so after those 2 books, I'm not. Oh, actually, no, I take that back. I already talked to Brian Knox about doing a Brahma book. Um, so him, we'll probably get a couple other people involved. So that'll be one that'll be coming up soon. I think I'll do Langshans with that as well. And I like to include a couple breeds.
It makes it easier, especially
Yeah,
on most breeds, since most breeds they're popular, but they're not dominant numbers wise.
exactly. Yeah, and I could never sell enough to even make my money back on a lot of those books if I didn't have
Right.
several breeds
Right.
in them.
Yeah. No, that's a good idea. Good idea. Well, good. What do you want to talk about? Anything? What do you think of the hobby? Where are we going?
Where are we going? I think it depends on where you're looking in terms of what you think. If you look online, but social media, people like to get on there and complain. Um, especially like with the APA, especially the APA lately. I mean, they've been complaining like crazy. I don't think social media. This is just my thought. I don't think social media really represents the hobby as a whole.
I don't think they represent society as a whole.
No, it doesn't. People can get on there and they just complain. I think just my personal thought is I think the hobby's doing pretty good, and I'm just sort of basing this like on my books because I get a lot of youth that get these books. So that
Yep.
kind of tells me that we've got young people that are interested in the hobby. So we're gaining new people. I couldn't tell you membership wise what it's been like in ABA or APA, but just based on that, I think it's actually
It's
looking pretty
actually
good.
surprising because everybody likes the. You're right. Everybody likes the doom and gloom, but there's actually more people. Other than maybe a couple blips, but there's more people belonging in our organization now than ever has. So, um, comparing it to like the 70s, 80s, 90s when things got a little tough there,
Mm-hmm.
the numbers went way down both clubs, and I think the APA's way up. Now the APA does something a little different than us. They have a junior membership, so they kind of subsidize that a little bit. So they have a little
Yeah.
higher numbers. But what amazes me, and I always tell everybody this because I've been an ABA supporter since I was old enough to sit with Grant Malone and Carl Pappert and hear all the horror stories with the fights with the APA. But we've always supported the ABA. Their membership is very different than the APA. So everybody, oh, we need one club. No, we don't need one club. We need a special Bantam club because there is a big percentage of these breeders that just raise Bantams, and that's all they're
Oh
interested
yeah.
in. And I don't think we got treated fairly in the early years, and I'm talking early years from the beginning up until even into the 70s. It was bad. And then when the gas crisis hit, the Bantams overtook the large fowl. And then there was a whole different story. So the APA kind of went on the downhill swing. And Mike and I knew Ed Miller, and he was the president at the time. And the gas crisis, you just couldn't afford to raise them. I mean, you couldn't take them, you couldn't do things with them. And the Bantams really gained because you could raise, 10 times the amount of Bantams in the same space. So I think, in a good sense, probably we invested in the 90s in the kids and junior programs and showmanship and all this stuff, and it's starting to pay dividends because I'm old enough to see the kids that I started. are bringing their kids back, and sometimes even grandkids. I know I'm
Right.
really old, but that investment the poultry hobby made and the rabbit hobby made paid dividends. The pigeon hobby should have paid attention because they're an old man's hobby that's dying out,
Yep.
and they never
Yep.
encouraged kids and women. Mike and I, when we started, this was an old man's hobby, and they
Right.
went away on the weekends to go to these shows, and that was their time. And they didn't want anybody else, kids and women, messing it up. And we've seen it evolve from that because there was very few women and kids, and I mean the only kids that were in it when we were there were ones that wanted to be, and we had to persevere
Plus,
because they weren't real friendly when you started, and then once you got into it and they seen you were serious, and they kind of took you under your wing. So I think on our last one we made the comment there we're starting on third base now with these kids. They're not starting at the same, which is good because they're starting with better birds. They're able to do better,
Right.
and we get a few that stick. I can see them. I've got a couple that right now that I've kind of mentor a little bit that are getting into their teen years and are really going to, I know they're going to stick with it. So I think we're in a good shape, overall, even with all the problems. There's always going to be problems, and we're all volunteers doing this. And that's why
Right.
I try to bite my lip sometimes when I see things I don't like because if you don't want to get in there and fix it, then you better just shut up. And that kind of quiets them up if they start complaining too much. The problem with
Yeah, I
social
agree.
media is you have to have a members only section because what I found with social media is all these outsiders that have no game, no dog in the run or whatever that they want to put their opinions in there. And in my mind, if you're not a member, you don't have an opinion. I don't need to listen to you because
Right.
that's not our constituency that we need to deal with. So you have to be a member first. And if you don't want to make that commitment, then I don't really want to hear about your opinions because there's too many of them. There's just, I know the APA, when they had their open Facebook page, well, my God, they had like 14,000 people on there. Well, how many of them are members?
Oh yeah.
So the ABA's never went much with social media. We've tried to stay out of it because we just don't have time to police it. And they get into all these crazy fights on there. And I think the APA realized the same thing, and they went away from they have a page now, but it's not official. So you get away from all that craziness and non-members
Mhm.
coming in there to tell you what to do. And so those are the downsides to the internet. This has worked good for us. The podcast, a lot of people are interested in it. They can either listen or not. So I guess that's the good thing. If you don't like it, and I get people messaging me all the time because we're a little behind them. When are you gonna do another one? What are you gonna do next? And we have several guests lined up. It's just with Mike and I trying to get it planned and take the hour to get it all together is the issue. But it's been going so far. We're glad to have you on here because I think this is a great asset to the hobby. And I know on the ABA side, we sell lots of these books, and I think some of them have went overseas too. Of your books from up through us because our uh,
Uh huh.
our
Yeah.
our website gets a lot of from the uh, Google trackers gets a lot of foreign hits, especially those bizarre countries. Like Eastern Europe. I think they're starved for information. I think that's what it is. I think Germany,
Yeah.
Belgium, Holland, they all have their things, but I think some of the more obscure countries look to us to get the stuff because they just don't have it. All right, I'm
I think,
blabbing
Yeah. I've
enough.
had several go to Lithuania.
Yeah, that's a
yeah,
hotbed. Neil Grassball had went to Lithuania for work for the commercial side, and he was amazed at the Lithuania, Switzerland, Belgium, they have like these coops on their houses. And when they open the coop, they have like wine and cheese parties. They're like whitewashed in a mag. I was like, I could never imagine having chickens, but I had sold Rhode Island red bantams to a lady in Switzerland back in '98, and she smuggled them back in her coat. She made this coat on the airplane. This is back before 9/11, but I think she put 30 eggs in these pockets in her coat, and she took them back to Switzerland. And she hatched 10 chicks. But she sent me a video in the day. I wished I still had it, but of opening up her coop, her Rhode Island red coop, on the back of her house, and it was like, my God, it was like pretty snazzy. It was almost like the
Yeah.
uh,
That's it.
the people in Dubai with their pigeons. They're got marble floors and gold chains on the walls, but it's kind of a neat deal. So we've kind of gotten away from, with all the disease and things about getting things that way. But it was neat that she got those back there. It was funny because the Germans and the Europeans have really big bantams. And when she got those reds back over there, the English especially called them red sea brights because they had never seen a Rhode Island red bantam like a third the size of what they've got.
Yeah.
So, and the Wyandottes, rocks, all of them over there, they tend to, their bantams tend to be a little larger than, um, other than the true bantam breeds, tend to be a little larger than what ours are.
I think what's cramped us a little bit is this spring is this uh, avian influenza,
Right.
and us just being able to get places. I mean, I think Matt, what we've had at least 6 shows canceled on us where we were
Yeah,
supposed to be gone
we're in
judging.
the hotbed of it. So our two shows that we usually do in the spring both got knocked out, and then we had a junior show that we were going to do. It was kind of a neat thing that they were trying to promote the kids with, and it was the first one that got knocked out because it was right in the hotbed of the good thing. The good thing is there's been no infections the last I heard since March 9th, and our ban expires the. It's not really a ban; it's a resolution the
Uh-huh.
state ag guy made, which is binding to people that live in those counties. But May 15th that expires, and I don't think that it'll be reinstated. I think everybody will be good from then on out.
Yeah, what's good too is you're not seeing the show up in any backyard
No,
flocks. It's waterfowl carry it, but then it's the large operations. That's probably just
It's
biosecurity breaches, really.
one of the interesting things. I talked to a few people down that way, and how it spread because there was like one facility had 6 houses. They're thinking that the ventilation systems from one house spread it to the next. So even
Mm-hmm.
that as a vector is kind of, now how are we going to deal with that? And I heard from Mike Stitzler when he was here to get feed that a couple of the houses up his way, I put these pine groves down in between the houses, and somehow that filters the air getting sucked from one to the other. And he said it's worked. So he said that was the big thing up there, and they have case farms and a couple big broiler houses up his way
Uh-huh.
that they were trying that because it's if it's airborne, there's nothing we can do about it. I
Right.
think it's in the wild bird population over and above the waterfowl. We seen it 5 or 6 years ago here, where we had dead starlings everywhere, and they said don't feed the wild birds, don't put bird baths out. Well, we know what that was. It was AI, is what it was, and it went through
Right.
them. It's in the wild raptors. They've tested turkey buzzards, eagles, hawks. They all have it, and they've survived it. So I think our stuff maybe because we're commingled with everything everywhere. I think maybe a little tougher and more resistant to the high path. But when you got a
but
laying house that never gets exposed to anything, and they're in
Right.
there for 2 years, that's the
Yeah.
perfect storm. The
yeah,
broilers and the turkey growers probably not as big because they're not alive long enough, but definitely those laying houses are the ones that are getting hurt bad.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. For
it's
my
kind of like
my
when they
job,
hit. Go ahead.
for my job, we'll see it a lot in waterfowl. Well, we test them, send it off to Squidus, an independent lab, and the infection rate's fairly high. Occasionally there'll be big die-offs in fields. We'll go out test them, and it's almost always AI.
Yep,
Yeah, I think it's something
and
we're
I
just
think
going to have to live with.
Yes.
That's
yeah, it is. Well, in the immunity thing, uh, I remember back when they first went to the large uh, commercial hog houses, and they were in the sterile and the floors and they're very clean and they're away from everybody. Well, they caught more disease. I mean, because they're not immune to
Right.
anything. They're in a
Right.
sterile environment, and I do think the way that I mean, you try to you don't leave stuff around, so they drink where the waterfall fly over, and maybe poop in your pond or whatever, and all that stuff. But I think, truthfully, that most of our, let's just say, showbirds, small farms that birds run in and out, they're outside, they get in. I think they build up a lot of immunity to that,
Mm-hmm.
or
Yeah.
or some sort. I mean, if it's right in there, well, if it kills, a raptor, it's probably going to kill your chicken. But I mean, it's still. I think a lot of that, uh, as my dad would say, hothousing them, it causes some eviscerates the problem more than anything else. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
know why they do it. Hell, you can't keep that many hens. How many acres would you need?
Right.
So I
Right.
mean, I know why it's done, but I'm just I think it's a little bit different with the hobby than it is with professional poultry.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
it's my 2 cents. Where you going? You got any shows this fall you're going to?
Yeah, I'm not sure yet, but I usually I start showing, in October. This time of year my birds are not in condition at all. They're in breeding pens. I actually hope to go to the Ohio National this year.
You
Um,
better.
yeah, kind of hoping to. I got it on my calendar and I already reserved a room.
Good, good.
Working on getting my wife
Yeah,
to go. She's a school teacher. She hates to miss work, but
Oh yeah.
yeah, I go to several shows here in the South. One day I want to go to the Northeast Poultry Congress. That'd be
It's
kind of
definitely one to go to. We went 10 years in a row, and this was the first year I'd been back in a while. And there's been several times I've been up there that I prayed to God I wished I wasn't there because of weather coming back.
yes.
And we actually had a little bit of that coming home. Got into some ugly stuff in Pennsylvania going back to my daughters, and I thought, oh, I know why. My wife, the last time, she says I'm not going no more because we got into Buffalo and freezing rain. So the weather is always that issue. But I've been up there when you could wear a T-shirt in January, so
Uh-huh.
it's always hit and miss. But there's been a few times, but it is. I don't think there's a better laid out show. Decorated better. They have a breed champion row. I mean, Brian and crew, Jill Henning and several Cheryl Barnum and all of them up there do a fantastic job putting it on, and they have a beautiful facility. It's in Massachusetts in January,
Right.
which I know
All
from
from
Louisiana.
Louisiana.
So if you can ever get up there, fly into Hartford. It's
Yeah,
the
I'd
easiest
probably
way to
drive,
do
I
it.
guess. I don't know. Yeah. But
In
even
Columbus,
Ohio
Mike and
National.
I got to go to the Ohio National Spring Meeting a couple weeks
Uh-huh.
ago for the ABA to kind of talk to them, and they've done a good job over the years with all of our big shows, and we're expecting a huge one this year. And
Yeah.
their egg show's getting real big, so the Ohio Poultry Association sponsors that egg show. So those ladies got big plans for that. Their junior show, second to none. I mean, guy that's larger than most open shows, and I've been in the judging of that for the last several years. So that's always huge. Like good showmanship. I told them last time we did this, I was always amazed with that show that everything's done on Saturday on that junior show. And the coordination to get all those awards passed out, all the kids up there, it just amazes me because at 4 o'clock, by God, it's going on, and you better be up there to get your stuff because by about 5:30, it's done.
Uh-huh.
So
Good
we're
deal.
looking for a good time down there again. It always is,
Yeah.
and I don't know. It always gets bigger and better. I never think that it can. We were talking at the meeting. We'd like to know how much dollars was exchanged over there in the sale area because
Oh, yeah,
you
it's a
got
lot.
to you have to. We only get to go over there usually about once on Friday because we're busy all day Saturday and Sunday. But just to walk through there on Friday, it just amazes me. I told him I'd never seen that many white runner ducks. They were selling them. And this lady had a hog trailer or a stock trailer, and it was full of pens of white runner ducks. And I don't even know who she was, but it was a hot commodity because they were just raking them out of there, and lots of big waterfowl out there. So
Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of
that
them.
always amazing. You have to see it once. I always tell everybody because
Oh, yeah.
there's probably more birds over there than there is in the show building, and definitely more of them changing owners.
Yeah, I could take pictures all day long there,
Yeah.
Oh, you
just a
could.
different bird.
Yeah, you could because
Yep.
everything is there. I
Oh, yeah.
mean, basically, if it's there and it's a destination spot. I
Right.
mean, even like last year, there were no national meets, and what did we have? 6,000 that
It was over 7,200, I think. It was
there,
the
and there was
biggest show
nothing.
ever without a national meet.
And, and people from all over. I mean, even when we couldn't show, like when Matt was judging open, so yeah, what am I going
Right.
to do? But you go because you get to see the people from all over the country, and many times from other countries
Right.
that plan, and they come in there, and it's just the show is great. The fellowship on Friday and Saturday night at the between where you eat and at the host hotel, you can't beat it. And you learn more stuff there than you'd ever learn anywhere else. It's a great time. I mean, if I had my druthers, I'd never miss one.
Hmm.
whether they had a meet or not. And of course, it's
Right.
close to us, But I mean, still, if you've got to plan a show, that's a show to plan for.
Yeah,
And,
definitely. Is the
and
ABA National there this year?
Yeah,
yes,
we're there
Yeah.
this year. I think another good one's going to be the APA National in Arkansas. So
Yeah.
yes,
my
sir.
daughter went to school at the University of Arkansas, so I'm
Yep.
very familiar with the area. But Mike and I have been out there a couple times since they moved into the Pauline Whitaker facility at the
You're right.
University of Arkansas. That show's really picked up, and
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think
We're
Jacob
judging
and
there this
Marty
year.
and the crew we're judging out there this year, which unfortunately is the week before Columbus. So that's
Right.
a big road trip before we get ready for Columbus. But
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hoping to
we're
go to that one as well.
that's a
Yeah,
nice facility and
it's
show.
very nice. Have you ever been there?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I've been there
Yeah,
once. It was real good.
yeah. I like the facility. Uh, I like the way it's set up, and I like the rafters, and
Oh, yeah, it's great.
there's always stuff going on.
Right.
And you can't get better people than the people that run that show.
Yeah, they do an awesome job with it. And the food
Fantastic.
sale area.
And yeah, fantastic. So that's. I mean, it's one of many. There's many shows. I don't want to slight anybody because we've been in it so long. We have a lot of friends that run a lot of shows.
Right.
But for when you have a national meet, it's nice that the show that hosts that meet can handle that meet.
Right, exactly. Yeah, they do. They
And
do
I
a good
think, yeah, and I mean, even your show. That was my first time at your show.
job. Hmm.
Uh, I don't know how many times you'd ask me, but there's always something going. Oh, uh, is that the same weekend as Knoxville?
Knoxville
Yes,
weekend.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
usually
first
we're
Saturday.
there. Yeah, but I tell you, we Terry and I had such a good time. Not, I mean, the food was a big part of it. Let me
Yeah,
tell you.
jambalaya cooked on site.
Oh God, it was fantastic. And but the people there are not just you guys that run it, you and Shannon and the rest of them, but I mean the people.
Right, yeah.
They're showing. I mean, you can't get any. I mean, if you don't like them, you don't like nobody. Stay home.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. And
I recommend your show highly. It was a hell of a drive coming
that's
back
the Red
home.
Stick Poultry Club, for those that don't know,
Yes.
in Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
Yeah.
the club's only three people. It's me, my wife, and Shannon Lashun. And then
Yeah. You
volunteers
guys
help
do a
out a
hell of a
lot.
job. You do a great job. I know it's a lot of work
Yeah.
and everything, but yeah, that was a lot of fun. We had actually had a wonderful time, even though it was cold and rainy, but we had a really good time.
Good deal. We'll get Matt to come one day.
Yeah, we'll get down there one day. I have done several in Louisiana when the Sarama craze was kicking on. They had me down there several times to do those. So, and I have an aunt that lives in Baton Rouge, so
Okay.
I've been there. I understand the food and the good times. There's never a bad time there, that's for sure. Another
Yeah,
one
we
I
have
like
a,
to talk about we just took the other day. Mike and I have been there several times, but the Alabama Bantam Club, which
oh
is
yeah.
a lot of our friends from years ago, and the ones that are currently running that are putting that show on now up in Anniston. So in
Right.
February we're going back down. I like the 3 day 3 show thing,
Yeah,
and
Friday, Saturday.
the funny story. I took Lou Cunningham with me because they needed another judge. Somebody had canceled on him, and so Lou and I went down, and then Mike drove down with his wife and Terry, and then they went on to Georgia. But Louis and I went down. He kept saying the whole time, all the way down, all the way back. Anyways, is he never seen that many good birds in a 400 bird show? I said, yes, there's no slouches in there. You actually have to work,
Yeah, it's
and
a
Yeah.
good show.
Yeah.
and a lot of breeds that he didn't get to see, up here too much. So we enjoy going down there and looking to go back in the Anniston facility. Now there's so many shows there. I think there's eight or
There are.
10 different shows there, and we had pigeon shows there too. So Jay Turner down there that way runs pigeon shows in the same facility. So that's been a good deal for them, and it's not quite as far for us too. So
Right.
No,
so I'm
it
looking
is
forward to
close.
that one. I always tell everybody we judge more probably in the South anymore than in the North. Him and I go to Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida several years. So it's a good getaway, and the people down there are second to none as far as hospitality and hosting. And so it's good to get away. And there's lots of good shows your way. I missed the Mississippi show, and I think it was
Yeah,
coming
me
back,
too.
and then
Yeah, AI shut it down.
Yeah, Scott McDonald and his wife Julie were good friends of ours, so we went there
Right.
several times and always enjoyed that show because it was at the time it was the only show in Mississippi. So
Correct.
they had the whole state had kind of dried up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
hell,
think they
we
have
went
it.
down. We judged there several times, and then in between judging there, that one time they had the APA semi-annual. Hell, we loaded up, and it was Matt and I and Ron Patterson and
Nothing.
Jonathan. We made the haul 14 hours.
Yep.
Went
Hauling a
right
big old
on down,
trailer.
big old trailer went down there to show, and we had I really miss Scott McDonald.
Yes. Yeah. He's a good man.
Yeah, so but we had a wonderful time. I mean, it's just the people are just wonderful too. I mean, they're the same. It's the same kind of cloth as the people that come to your show.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always a great show.
Yeah, yeah. So hope they get back on board. I don't know. It can be rough, especially if the leader's gone and someone else assumes that
Right.
hasn't had that responsibility and maybe doesn't quite have that same. How do I want to put it?
Drive.
Dry
Driver.
personality.
Driver insanity. I don't know which it is.
Yeah,
Might be just
but
crazy enough to do it.
and a lot of things though is to try instead of trying to make things happen, you kind of let things happen and develop and work with it instead of having that well that goes to any show. You
Yeah.
got to have those with the drive, but you also got to have the personality to adapt to, and you got to do the same thing showing. I mean, shit happens, right?
Right.
On the
Right.
way there, while you're there,
Right.
you complain about the judges and this and that. Yeah, well, it's a chicken show.
Right.
Enjoy yourself.
Exactly.
It's amazes me because when we go, and I was in Clanton, Alabama, several times. But it's restaurants, so him and I would go all the time, sometimes 30 weekends a year. And I'll get to these restaurants. And I thought I've been here before, so there's a little steakhouse there in barbecue joint steakhouse in Clanton that I've probably been to 10 times, and every time where they tell me it is, it never comes together to like get in the door. But they got we find all these wonderful places to eat if we don't do anything else. So
Right.
Yeah.
we can tell you
Yeah,
all
well,
up and down 65 where what exit there's good restaurants at and what restaurants to keep going by. So
and
we kind of
sometimes
got
we
that.
get lost.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
got lost. Was that North Carolina? We
yep.
were somewhere, or South Carolina. We got lost, and we're driving, him and I. It's like, where the hell are we? We're on this
Winston
campus, whatever
Salem.
campus. Yeah, there's the campus, and they had all this shit shut off. So we make a right turn and a right turn, and I said, "Look at there!" And it was called uh,
There's a barbecue
the
place, like Little
yeah the
Richards.
barbecue
Little Richards.
Little Richards. I said, "Hell, let's go there." I'm telling you, it was absolutely fantastic. Well, who the hell would have thought about? It's in little things. You enjoy what happens along the road. It was fantastic. Yeah, Little Richards. I started singing "Doo Papa Wop" to it. Yeah, but he wouldn't let
Do some karaoke while you're there.
me. Yeah, a little bit. There wasn't even a sound system. We just at the table letting it roll. So no, that's good. Well, Jeff, I tell you, I don't know. You anything else you want to cover?
I don't think so. It's been fun. I've enjoyed it.
No, I'm
Oh, we'll
glad
put
you came.
the link to Clucker Supply on the bottom, or Clucker Supply.
Clucker books.
Clucker's book. I'm thinking I also got to plug Caitlin and Rosier's
Yeah.
Poultry Supply because she did a couple weeks ago. She sent me a bag of her Breeder's Magic, and Mike got one as well. And I wasn't having a real good laying. I wouldn't even get to fertility yet, but they just wasn't laying the way I thought they should. After laying all winter when I didn't want to hatch, and then when I
Of
wanted to
course.
hatch, um, and I tried this, and I told Mike, I said I started on Saturday, and about by Wednesday, I just had eggs in pens I didn't have eggs in. So I don't know whether it was that stuff or just the timing, but I've been using it with the chicks that I've got out now, and
Yeah.
and we're up to full ramp on production. So
Excellent.
we'll have some more updates on it when we're done. But if you need anything, I know there's a big issue with fibronal poultry or
Yeah.
dog spray. They've banned it, and so you can't find it. So I know they're looking for other alternatives.
They have
We
one, but I, from the last I heard, it's they're doing some tests on it. I mean, they're personally doing tests to make sure that it works
It
like it
works.
should.
Yeah, we
And
used
I,
that Martin's Flea for years because it was kind of a knockoff Frontline, and I
Yeah.
haven't found anything any better than that. I don't think it
no,
hurts the birds, and it doesn't hurt fertility, and it gets those. We have northern fowl mites. I don't know if you have them down there as
Oh
bad as
yeah,
what we do, but
definitely.
they're just terrible, and you can have a you can have a pen, nothing in there, then all of a sudden one bird just gets nailed. So it
Yeah.
seems like they go to the weakest link, and
Yeah.
they can, if you don't get them, they can do some devastation on those. So that's the only hitch I've known of, is that you can't get that. Martin's Flea and Frontline has been taken off the market. I don't know all the reasoning behind that. I guess there was some toxicity in dogs, I think, is what I heard. Some dogs got allergic to it or sick to it, so they somehow it got banned overseas, and then it got banned here. So I think you can still get it with a vet prescription, and then I've seen it in more highly concentrated. So what it's used for, believe it or not, is termites.
Oh
Cows
really?
that have termites, they have a concentrated mix of this. And I'm trying
Yeah.
to think of the name of it now. I was researching it a little bit, but that's what they use for termites. And when they banned it for the pets, these termite people had a fit. So they still make a real concentrated one, but I wouldn't know how you would mix that down to get it to where you need to use it
Right.
on. I mean, it's not even regulated. We probably should watch what I say. Even that Frontline was not regulated for poultry use. So it was like it was a non-scheduled use that we were doing it, and I think they probably were selling to more chicken people than anybody. But it was good stuff. And for years we used Adams flea off mist. It was oil based. Then they made it water based, and when they made it water based, it didn't have no residual, and you had to
Oh,
spray every week. And that was what I liked about Frontline, about once every 3 months, and especially with the crested fowl, because they're horrible for stuff up in their crests and beards, the bearded breeds. So Frontline was great because you could just get them with a little shot of that, and it knocked them in the butt. But hopefully Caitlin and Tim find something else for us to use that they're going to recommend. So that's the only thing on the poultry supply end. Incubators getting hard to get, so I think hatching time is going to have some problems with the tariff thing, and
oh
they're
yeah.
already backstocked. So they may, and I seen the prices went up considerably, so they may be tough to get. I was looking at one that Stromberg sells that I really like the setup, Arcom. They make smaller incubators, but they actually make some really nice cabinet incubators too. And I seen them out in California because Stromberg's has a table out there, and they're real similar in how they work to hatching time in Brincia. So that's the only other one coming up. And then there's the GQFs. A lot of people use those. So
Yeah.
that's all I got
I
on the
don't know.
incubator end.
I saw on YouTube we got the guy hatched him in a tire and how great that was.
In a
Yeah,
tire.
it's.
I,
I've
I
seen
want
them
to
hatch them.
throw I want to throw a bottle through the TV set. It's like, and I look at this like 1.2 million views. I said, you gotta be shitting me. This
Yep.
guy don't know shit. You don't know shit, and you're believing it.
Yeah.
Anyhow, there's my rant. There's always a rant sometime during this. That's my rant. You know.
The only one that gets you to ranting is you have to watch the Calduck people and all their voodoo hatching methods. I love Dustin Wilson because he just pretty much lays it on the line. I don't think anybody alive hatches any more call ducks than Dustin does, and he doesn't do any of that voodoo stuff. And I think what they've done is they made the breed so inept that it can hatch, and that's a lot of it. And to do all those things is not helping the breed. So that call duck thing, we'll have to do one on those one of these times because Mike and I have both been there, tried it, and my best luck was just hatching them in an incubator with my chicken eggs. I got
Uh-huh.
more out that way than I did with all the hand turning and spraying and drying. They have a whole voodoo method they use, and everybody's different. So there's a good book, but I don't know if you wouldn't have any hair left by the time you got it wrote.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah. See,
I
Caldic is one I'd like to
started. Look, I
there's
started.
definitely a market for it, but whether
Yeah.
you could get three Calduck guys to agree on how they're doing things or not, I don't know.
Yeah. Who knows? But that's on the list too.
Yeah, another one would be,
Good.
I would suggest, and we talked about it with Nate Reinish was on here, but the big waterfowl are really coming back.
Yes.
Jake Wilson, Nate, there's some good breeders out there. I don't know, the market for it would be the issue. There's a lot of them out there now, and they're kind of spotty over the years. But I guess now, if the hit when the iron's hot, I guess now is the time for
Right.
big waterfowl. The people with
Yeah.
Toulouse and Sebastopol and
Right.
heavy ducks and even the light ducks and medium ducks are really on the upswing. So
Yeah. I have to have several breeds in one book for
yeah,
that.
I
For
think you
sure.
could do like a medium duck, a light
Right.
duck, and a heavy duck would be
Yeah, that's
great.
kind of what I was thinking.
And even with the geese are really coming on, and those are some good resources for those things. They're young, and you have to be young and crazy to do it. Number one, because that's a
Right.
lot of work and a lot of mess, and they seem to be enthusiastic about it. We've kind of lost our waterfowl luster over the years
Uh-huh.
because you got to have the facility to keep them, and if you don't, they're just a mess. So
Right. Yeah, I used to have some Chinas when I was a kid. White Chinas. They were pretty
yeah,
fun.
white chinas was my favorite goose. I had them for a
Yeah.
long time.
I hate
Very
them.
rare now. Good ones
Yeah.
I
are
hate them.
very hard to come by, but they always call them the poor man's goose because they when you put them on a pond, in China looks like a swan or poor man's swan. Excuse me. A
Yeah.
pair of white chinas out swimming on a pond. If you
Yeah. That
watch
long
them,
head.
they're very similar to a swan. So they always called
Yeah.
them around here the poor man's swan. So you could market them that way, anyways, when you got extras. All right, Mike, we're at an hour. Unless you got anything else to
Good
wrap
deal.
up with.
Uh, I think I'm good, Jeff. I appreciate it. Glad you came on. Hey, you're welcome back anytime you got something. New book comes out. Yell.
Sounds
We'll
good.
go on. Doesn't have to be an hour. We could either talk about nothing or just talk 15, 20 minutes about the new book and
It's always
anything
an
you want to
hour.
do.
With us, it always ends up being an hour.
And we don't mean it to be, but that's how shit goes. I think
And
after an hour we're just tired.
yeah, we just
But we
Yeah.
cut it
can
off at
usually
an hour because it's time to go get
yeah,
another
we
cup
can
of coffee.
bullshit
And
till then, and then it was that's enough. My coffee's empty. I want to go smoke a cigar.
yeah, got to
And
pee.
good seeing you. Gotta
Yeah.
be.
You
All
know,
right, guys, appreciate it. That link will be added here when we get things done. You can find Jeff's books. We'll put a link to his website. You can also go on the ABA and the APA websites and order the books. And as always, we're sponsored by Rozier Poultry Supplies. Bye.
excellent.
All right.
Thanks a lot. Goodbye.
See y'all later.
See you later.